and this is where I guess where it counts, is to me that means that we go over things in great detail, but not just the incident itself. Ultimately, whether it's to you or to somebody else, because basically it all began in Washington State, that is, that's where I was living, that's where I grew up as a kid, and that's where I grew up as a young man, and those kinds of images, impulses, and behaviors which ultimately led to the violent behavior, occurred, if you will, in Washington State. That the kind of broad understanding that I'm looking for is going to come, during those years I lived in Washington State. Unfortunately, I guess from your standpoint, it was basically Washington State where those first crimes, incidences, murders that took place. Well, let's just do one here. Let's start. Obviously, we got to start somewhere. And I think we might, it's a long shot, it's a pretty long shot, that you might be able to get something out of it. At least some of that so-called tangible evidence that might be of some value not only to you but to others. And maybe a bit of information, even if you don't find anything else, that might be of some value to families. Okay. So we'll do, I understand that at the Issaquah site, which I could describe to you, would describe to you if you want, there were three remains of three individuals found, two identified and one not, because of the so few, the kinds of remains that were found were so few and unidentifiable. Okay. What do you want? Where this description of the site first? How do you get there? You just don't make this up, right? Maybe half a mile, quarter of a mile down this little side road. If you kept on flying all the way down, oh well, Lord knows what the little creatures up there did, what the animals would have done. But I think well, let me start with one. Let me start this way. The unidentified remains. This is where I'm a little bit. The presence of the officers down here is a little bit unnerving. Some of this stuff I don't mind talking about, but because they wouldn't know from Adam. But names, I can write it down, or I can whisper it to you, or whatever. I just don't want the police getting any kind of names at this point. Well, can you hear that?
I can hear it, yes.
Okay. I just said that the Hawkins girl's head was severed and taken up the road about 25 to 50 yards and buried in a location about 10 yards west of the road on a rocky hillside. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not anything you would have found that I know of. If you would have found damage to the head, the jaw in particular, probably broken. But if you'd found that, you would have known who it was. But anyway, I don't know.
Right.
Is there any reason you asked me that question? I was moving up the alley. Using a briefcase and some crutches. And a young woman walked down. I saw her round the north end of the block into the alley and stop for a moment and then keep on walking down the alley toward me. And about halfway down the block, I encountered her and asked her to help me carry the briefcase, which she did, and we walked back up the alley. Across the street, turned right on the sidewalk in front of, I think, a fraternity house on the corner there. Rounded the corner to the left, going north on 47th. Well, midway in the block, there used to be one of those parking lots they used to make out of burned down houses in that area. Let's see. We were to the car. All right. And basically, when we reached the car, what happened was I knocked her unconscious with the crowbar.
Where'd you have that?
By the car.
Outside?
Outside and back of the car.
Did she see it?
No.
Okay.
No. And then there were some handcuffs there, along with the crowbar.
Along with what?
The crowbar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I handcuffed her and put her in the passenger side of the car and drove away.
Was she alive or dead?
Oh, no, she was quite, she was unconscious, but she was very much alive.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that makes it a little bit, among the things that makes it difficult is that at this point she was quite lucid, talking about things, about some, it's funny, it's funny, but it's odd, the kinds of things people say under those circumstances. And she said that she thought that she had a Spanish test the next day, and she thought that I had taken her to help tutor me for a Spanish test. It's kind of odd thing to say. The long and short of it, I mean, I'm going to maybe try to make this get there by degrees. The long and short of it was that I again knocked her unconscious and strangled her and drug her into about 10 yards into the small grove of trees that was there.
What are you strangling with?
Cord.
Cord?
An old piece of rope.
Is something you brought there with
Yeah.
you?
Something was in the car. Then I packed the car up. By this time, it was almost dawn. It's just about dawn. Sun was coming up. And I went through my usual routine. I went through this routine where I was just absolutely, I would go through this, but on this particular morning, I was just absolutely, again, just shocked, kind of scared to death, shocked, horrified and I went down the road throwing everything that I'd had, the briefcase, out the window, throwing the briefcase, the crutches, the rope, the clothes, just tossing them out the window. This was just, I was in a sheer state of panic, of just absolute horror, It's like, at that point in time, this consciousness of what has really happened is like you break out of a fever or something. That is. And so I drove north on 90, then northeast on 90. At some point throwing articles out the window as I went, articles of clothing, shoes, etc.
When did you remove those?
What?
The shoes, clothing.
Well, after we got out of the car, initially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I skipped over some stuff there, and we'll have to get back to it sometime, but I don't feel, it's just too hard for me to talk about right now. Oh, sure, yeah. I threw away the briefcase and the crutches and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the crowbar, everything. The handcuffs, everything. I get mad at myself a few weeks later because I'd have to go out and buy another pair. I mean, it's not comical, but that's what would happen.